Okay. So are we ready, Rob? Yeah, we're ready, man. So this is pretty much our present show. Rockermike and Rob present Robert Duncan.
Okay. And Mr. Duncan, thanks again for coming on. I want to kind of introduce you to our listeners. Okay. Robert Duncan contributed to Creem Magazine. Now, that was between 1974 and 1981. Anybody who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, you got to remember Creem Magazine if you were a rock fan. I still am. I still read some of those old, critiques of everything you guys did. You were also the managing editor between 75 and 76. And in 1977, they did a Creem Magazine reader poll, and you finished third as the best rock critic behind Lester Bangs and Robert Christgau. So you're definitely in great company right there.
I got a bronze, right?
You got a bronze. Hey, you got to be in it to win it. That's good. That's
well,
good.
when you get
you've also written for some other publications like Rolling Stone, Circus, Hit Parade, and even Life Magazine. I found that interesting.
Yeah.
How did you get hooked up with Life Magazine? Was it a music article, or was it something?
No, it was a story about the closing down of Route 66. It kind of was a music article.
Yeah.
And they had a whole photo thing on it, and I got a call from I had a friend of a friend, and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to write this thing," and I wrote it, and I later realized, it was a tryout for Life Magazine, and they printed my thing, but I guess I didn't make the cut on being a staffer.
Oh wow! So you were like being tested right there, kind of.
Yeah, unbeknownst to me. But
all right. Don't worry about that. Your other credentials are fantastic. Don't worry about it.
I recovered. I mean, I'm not sure I would have been. I would have worked out at the time. Life Empire.
Yeah, that's a little different than Creem. That's for sure.
It's true.
Now, also you've written several books. One particular book you did on Kiss in 1978, the rock group, one of my favorites.
True that.
A book called The Noise: Notes from a Rock and Roll Era in 1984. You wrote that, and then a book that I actually read when it came out called Only the Good Die Young: The Rock and Roll Book of the Dead, 1986.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that book I remember was all about dead rock stars.
That's it. In fact,
it was perfect.
That was the title I called it. I called the book Dead Rock Stars, which I thought was funny. And the publisher was like, "Oh no, no way." So
wow. I
said, "Well, that's the whole point, don't you get it?" But they didn't get it.
Nah, they got to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, So now you have a new book coming out in October called Loudmouth, coming out on Three Rooms Press. This is your first real novel, I guess you could say, fiction.
Yeah,
right?
It's my first, the first thing I've done that's labeled fiction. I think I've written fiction in the past, but it was labeled journalism.
Okay. Now
I'm joking.
I got you.
Yeah, it's fiction, it's basically it's very close into my personal memoir. It's not exactly true to the facts, but it's true.
Well, that's close.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, why not? Now I'm going to read this little blurb just so people just have an idea of kind of what it's about, and maybe we could talk a little bit about your ideas on this book. But one of the blurbs I wrote down here was, the novel is the story of Thomas Ransom, born to a severely dysfunctional Southern family, transplanted in New York City. Left to his own devices by neglectful parents, he spends much of his childhood shadowing his older, criminally inclined half-brother and roaming New York City with hard-drinking teenage pals. Tom eventually finds an outlet as the flamboyant singer of a downtown rock band, and later as the young editor of the Detroit-based magazine that invented punk, only to return to New York at the height of the 70s, Bacchanal, I don't even know how to say that word, Bacchanal, okay? And crash.
The Bacchanal, right.
Bacchanal, and crash. But it isn't music that saves him. It's a soft-spoken painter who turns out to be the the most outrageous character of all. Now, just reading that, I was like, that's like my childhood right there. Okay.
It sounds fantastic.
Or yours, Rob.
Yeah.
Yes, right?
It sounds fantastic.
It's definitely mine. Now, there's a few things not, my criminally minded older brother, he was a criminal, but that I was born in the Midwest and moved to New York later. So that happened in the Midwest, where he was like a hot rod gangster, and he was, fully armed hot rod gangster. So
this character's kind of based on him just a little bit, right?
Yeah, just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah,
bit.
you gotta.
Okay.
You gotta cover your ass a little bit, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now, comparisons to the book now, some early critiques of it, they're saying it's similar to the movie Almost Famous, and also Patti Smith's Just Kids.
Yeah.
Just Kids I read. That was a very good book.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I kind of go back and forth with Patti Smith in my opinions, but she's good. She was a very good book. And Almost Famous is a great movie. And it featured Creem Magazine and Rolling Stone Magazine and stuff like that.
Right.
I think more Rolling Stone, I think, right?
Yeah, but
right.
They had all that stuff with Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Lester Bangs.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. So
and he was amazing in that role.
He was great. He really was great. And he was a lot like Lester, who I worked with and was good friends with. But yeah, but there's actually a lot of Creem in that movie, and he's now Cameron Crowe, who directed the movie and wrote and directed the movie, and based on his life roughly, he's now put together a musical of it, and it was supposed to open on Broadway like next month, and of course because of the plague it's delayed. But we went to see it. We're friends with Penny Lane, who was depicted in the movie and all. And she said, "Oh, come with us. Come with me and her group down to." We saw a preview down in San Diego about 3 or 4 months ago. So, and saw Cameron, who I knew a little bit. But so it's funny. He's amped up the Creem stuff in it. So now in the musical, and it was really, really good. It's going to be a hit. But throughout the musical, Lester Bangs is kind of a narrator character throughout the whole thing, and he's kind of a voice of cool, and so he's amped it up, at least the Lester parts. But
that's very cool. Now in the documentary that came out last year about Creem Magazine, you were in it quite a bit. There really was just so much information there that I didn't know. Okay, like the beginnings of the magazine and all that. Now you came in '74, right?
I went to Detroit. I started writing for him in '74, but I went to Detroit in '75. So
okay, so they had already been established, according to the documentary, I would say about 5 years at that point. What did you think when you got there? Because it was total craziness from what I could see in the documentary. What the office was like, the working relationships.
Well, I would say that was accurate. I brought my own craziness to it. But what I thought about Creem was I was living in New York, but I had come from the Midwest when I was like in 4th grade, and I was like really freaked out by New York because I was living way out in the country, and
sure.
But give me a few years in New York. Actually, give me a few months, and then I became just a militant New Yorker. I was like, okay,
you have to. Or
this is the greatest, and everybody else, every other state and place and citizenry sucks. It's all about New York. Everything's beneath New York. So when I was living in New York, I was going to school in New York, and I used to see on the Astor Place subway station, it was the only place I saw. They had like a news kiosk there, and it's the only place I ever saw Creem Magazine in New York. And I'm looking at the covers, and it's like the MC5 and the Stooges and Grand Funk Railroad, and I'm like, what is this shit? This is like, I was like, that's like Detroit shit. This is just a Detroit magazine. I was like, yeah, well, fuck that. That's just hick shit. And I do a riff on this in Loudmouth, but I do the same riff. You don't have to read the book. I'm telling you all the stories. And so I went there, and I knew Lester Bangs' name. His name was hard to forget once you encountered it. But, he was this guy who always wrote about the MC5 and the Stooges and Detroit shit. And I'm like, well, so I never read them. It's like, whatever. I don't read that shit. And so when I got to Creem, and I came in at a low level, but editors kept being chased away, and I wound up being the editor. And Lester and this other guy, John Morthland, who was actually the guy who called me about the job, they picked me up at the airport, and we went and got drunk, and we had a
nice introduction.
Yeah, I was delighted. It was the middle of January, and it was freezing and snow everywhere. And I'm like, what did I?
Detroit's cold, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm like, what did I do? What am I doing here? Oh shit! So I was really happy to get drunk. But so going in, I wasn't like starry-eyed about Creem Magazine. I was, a skeptical New Yorker. Now, after I'm only like maybe I'm 21 at this point, and I'm like, so I'm still young enough to adapt. And, very soon I had fallen in love with Detroit. I still love Detroit. I love Iggy and the MC5, and I don't love Grand Funk Railroad. I need another lifetime to love them. But
I think they made one of the best live albums, though.
Really? Well, the only thing I liked was that Todd Rundgren song, an American band. We're an American band. Yeah. I thought that rocked, but it.
Yeah, it was.
But so that going in, those were my expectations were nothing. I needed a job. It wasn't highly paid job, but it was better than the nothing I was making in New York.
Well, what I love about Creem, what I loved about it was kind of an alternative music magazine before there was
for
such
sure.
a term.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you guys covered bands that nobody would put in a magazine. Rolling Stone wasn't going to do a spread on Iggy. That wasn't going to happen. Okay, and that's where I learned about these bands that weren't in the top 40, weren't being played on the radio, and it was kind of like then you had great pictures and you had funny articles. I grew up a big Kiss fan, so you guys always had funny Gene Simmons stuff, and then back in the day when no one knew what they looked like, which I always kind of, I laugh about because that could never happen today. You could never have a band that would be, in disguise, and nobody knew who they were. Nobody would honor that. But the rock magazines, especially you guys, really honored that. Like they'd show Kiss from behind, jeans, with long hair and a jean jacket and jean pants, and that was them. That's all from behind. That's all you saw, and that really kept that mystique going. But not just Kiss. I mean, one of my other all-time favorite bands is the Ramones, and you guys would cover them often too.
Sure.
Lester was big on the punk scene after a while, and he was down at CBGB's and all that stuff. Did you go to CB's in the 70s?
Oh yeah, all the time. Because I was only in Detroit for about a year and a half, and then I went back to New York. I got in a fight with the publisher. Everybody gets in a fight with the publisher, and I like him, but I got in a fight with him, and I was, and so I left in the middle of the night. I said, "Fuck this!" And my girlfriend lived in New York, and that was a problem. So. I went back to New York and I found eventually after a couple of months, I'm not sure how long it was, but I followed this journey in Loudmouth, but I found the cheapest apartment in New York. It was my wife says it was $150 a month, but I think it was $200. In any case, it was, between 14th and 15th Streets on 6th Avenue, and it was $200 even if it was $200, even back in 19 whatever this was, late 70s, it was cheap. It was a shithole.
That's the Chelsea neighborhood.
Yeah. And at the time, it had it was nothing fancy about it. All fancy people had not moved in yet. But
oh no, it was a rough area, very rough.
Back then, it was. It was at night. It closed.
Yeah,
up.
it was and the apartment was a shithole. We were over a Chinese Chinese restaurant, so the apartment was just full of cockroaches and mice. And,
you know what's funny? That Chinese restaurant's still there if it survived the pandemic.
I think it is. If it's
I know it is. 5426 Avenue. It was Gum Joy. It was Gum Joy, the restaurant. And after I'd been there for, I don't know how long. It wasn't that long, a month or 2 or 3. The guy in the apartment next door to me moved out, and I thought, I called Lester. I said, dude, I got the cheapest apartment in New York. You want the second cheapest apartment in New York? He was always talking about, I'm going to move to New York. Detroit sucks. Fuck this shit. And so I called his bluff, and I said, hey, here you go. I said, I'll put down a deposit for you. I'll talk to the landlord. And he says, all right, do it. So I was the one who lured Lester to New York, for better or worse. But that's what he always, that was his dream. And, he was big on all the New York bands, the Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, of course.
Ooh, yeah, good bands.
Yeah. His writings always talked about that stuff.
So
I got to ask your opinion on one thing, though, if you don't mind.
I'm all opinions.
And this is a question that I actually put to Handsome Dick Manitoba,
my friend,
a couple of months ago. We interviewed him. It was one of our best. I'm sure this one is going to be one of our best also.
Handsome Dick is one of my good friends. In fact, I owe him a phone call.
Okay, you could. Okay, if you speak to him, bring up Rockermike. We saw him Friday. Actually, he came to my birthday.
Oh, really?
So yeah, bring it up. But what I want to ask is this, because Lester, and I don't want to make this whole interview about Lester. But
whatever.
In a second. But this is important to me because I'd like your opinion on it. Lester had passed a comment in an article, and I'll just paraphrase because I don't remember exactly how he said it. But the quote was like, after Sgt. Pepper came out, rock and roll was never the same because it was considered an art form at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'm just
I remember roughly.
But now there's an interesting line in a Dictators song.
Yeah.
Okay. With Handsome Dick singing, and he says, June 5th, 67, something died and went to heaven. I wish Sgt. Pepper never taught the band to play. Okay. And I asked him this. Okay. I asked him about that lyric. He said, well, I didn't write it. Andy Chernoff wrote it. But I said, well, you sing it. I said, do you believe it? And we went into the meaning behind it, just like I told you. Now, I kind of believe what Lester says is that rock and roll, not that it was bad after that, definitely not, but something happened in the culture in the United States where rock and roll was all of a sudden taken seriously as an art form after Sgt. Pepper. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree that it raised the stakes in that, just what you said. It was rock and roll became. It's not just teenage music. It became like, this stuff could be serious, and rock performers thought, hey, I could be an artist instead of just a rocker, or whatever. So, I'm not sure. I don't think it ruined it forever. I'm sure it ruined some people. Some performers decided, there was a lot of bullshit that came out after that, but but Lester liked to harp on that, and
and I think that kind of showed through in almost the theme of Creem Magazine. Okay, this idea of rock and roll is about fun. It's about getting lumped up, wasted, and having a good time and getting laid and all these things. And that's what it was prior to Sgt. Pepper, and it was considered music for retards. Okay, music for people, music for like criminals and shit like that. So it wasn't taken serious, and then all of a sudden now it's being taken seriously, and then you have the following years after '67, in the 10 years before punk, where it becomes excessive, and you have 20-minute drum solos and 20-minute guitar solos and all that stuff, and all of a sudden punk comes back and kicks you in the ass. And that, I would think, since you guys were covering Iggy and MC5 and Alice Cooper and stuff that nobody was really talking about in the early 70s, and then all of a sudden punk comes along. It's like you called it. Yeah. It's like you called it. I think that's the amazing thing about Creem. I think it just showed through what rock and roll was supposed to be.
Well, I think that it's true that Creem, in a sense, and I say this in the novel, that Creem invented punk. They say that they claim that Dave Marsh, who was the first real editor of Creem, invented punk, the phrase punk rock. When he was.
Don't tell Legs McNeil that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, Legs McNeil has heard that, it's so. But it's true that the Creem was the spirit of punk before punk, and I think you're right. The magazine did call it, and stood pretty resolutely against Emerson, Lake and Palmer and prog rock, and just kind of like a lot of that stuff that got out of kind of just overly pretentious and overly precious, and it really stood for the kind of more straight ahead and seemingly authentic stuff, the stuff that really rocked. I mean, that was always the stuff that interested me. But when, you listen to like the Beatles and all those British invasion bands back at the beginning, the Stones and the Animals and the Kinks, well, they were rocking bands, and so were the Beatles.
Sure.
So,
of course.
But Creem definitely called it. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think you guys did. And let me ask your opinion on music today.
Yeah,
Robert. Okay, what are you listening to today?
I've been working on this book for 6 years, so I don't listen. Wow. So I can't listen to music when I'm writing. I don't listen to not even instrumental music. I like throw.
You just get right. You just write.
Because I'm trying to make my own rhythms and melodies, and so in the writing, I'm trying to do writing that is like rock and roll. That's always my aspiration. Gotcha. Now, that's probably a fucked up aspiration. I should just be writing.
Makes sense to me. I mean, rock and roll.
You know what? The music today is terrible. I hate to say it. It's just terrible. Maybe because I'm older, but it's garbage. It's a lot of garbage.
Well, there's a lot, but there always was a lot of garbage. Yeah. I really, maybe, again, it's me I'm just being a Pollyanna, but I don't believe the rock died and back with the Sgt. Pepper's or whenever you want to assign its death date.
And it's not dead
I don't think so.
Okay, it's just it's gone underground.
Yeah, that's
probably where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean
that's the way I see it.
Yeah, over the last I don't know, over the last 10, 20 years I've listened to a lot of music, and I keep up, and I used to produce a concert series, and I was always having young bands in it. It was like, oh shit, those guys are good. I was always finding good bands, and but I love a wide variety of bands, and I also listen to jazz a lot. But I loved one of my favorite bands. Now this is going back to the '90s, but there was was Guided by Voices. I loved the Mars Volta. New Pornographers, just there was, and the other day I was reading about Billie Eilish. I thought, well, I ought to try this Billie Eilish out, and so I listened to that on theme that she's done, and it's fucking great. It's just great. So I'm down with Billie Eilish. You know,
Hey,
who
that's
else
cool.
do I like? You
Really
know,
cool.
and some of the hip hop stuff. I mean, I fell in love with that first Kanye West album. Now, whatever the fuck happened to him since then, I don't know. Lil Wayne,
He's got off the rails a little bit.
Lil Wayne, I loved. Yeah, and there's a British band that has a new record that I should listen to because I listened to their earlier records, Sleaford Mods. You ever listen to them?
No, I don't think I heard of that.
They're big in England. They're just fantastic, man. They're really, check them out.
I will. If you say
I
it,
still
will
listen to. Well, when I listen to music, and now that I've finished the book, I can get drunk all the time and listen to music.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what we do. So you said you've been working for 6 years on this book.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. That's
it's
a long
too fucking
time,
long.
Right?
That is a long time.
What was it? Just creative blocks, or you had different ideas that
there was no blocks. I was flowing all the time, but it would be like I'd go back and look at it and say, like, I wrote for about 13 months. I just went crazy. I was writing for 13 months. I think I was giving myself psychotherapy, and at the end of 13 months I was like, what is all this shit I've been writing? And it was, different stories and this and that. And I thought, and I laid it all out on the floor, and I thought, God, if I added something here and subtracted something there, I could maybe put a whole book together, I thought it would be a memoir. I thought it might be linked short stories. I didn't know, but I decided I didn't want to worry so much about facts. So I just call it a novel. And you write the stuff and you think, oh, this is so good. And the next day you get up and you say, that sucks. So there's so much of that. And you never know, is this me being insecure, or does it really suck? And, a lot of times it did suck. So rewriting, so I spent most of those years rewriting. I think new writing was maybe I spent a couple of years doing that, and then rewriting. Oh my God. I was, we just got out the final, which is a printed version of the book, but it's uncorrected. And so up until about a month and a half ago, I was still crossing out shit and adding shit and all. So I'm looking forward to somebody taking the goddamn thing away from me and putting it out. And and then I did the audiobook. I spent most of this summer working on the recording the audiobook, and then and that's coming out at the same time as the print book, October 6th. And
right.
We can get a spam phone call here. I don't need that, do I?
All right. No.
Spam.
Delete that thing.
But so I was working on the audiobook, and that I made the terrible error of, I have a studio in my house because I started out as a musician. I still write and play music. But I thought, well, I'll just edit this audiobook myself. Let me tell you, don't ever try to edit an audio, because there's so much, in a book is like, 10 hours or something if you just read it straight through. And so, but I had a bunch of takes, so I must have had 50 hours of material to go through.
And then to put it all together
and make it technically nice. Oh my God. It's so, never do it. Wow. Let me just warn the audience. Never write a book and never do your own audiobook. Well, you can read it.
I actually do have a book, at least in the very, very, very pre-planning stages now.
Don't do it.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, maybe I'll tell you one day on the side. It's just like, it's something that needs to be done. But you're right. I know it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, let me ask you a quick question. What do you think about the future of all these live venues since this pandemic pretty much shut everything down.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen in a few years with like live venue, like New York? With live venues in New York, we're dying. We didn't have that many venues already. What do you think is going to happen after this pandemic?
It's a tragedy, man. It's a catastrophe. I think some of them will never come back. I think a lot of them will never come back. And then I think in a few years, there'll be some folks who get the idea like, hey, why don't we open a venue? And they will be somebody who doesn't quite remember the, they don't remember. Well, they don't remember the pandemic. So they're like, oh, hey, that would be fun. And they don't remember that the whole world went to shit and all the venues with it. So I don't know. I live in a little town right outside San Francisco, but we've always had like a bunch of bars with music. We're famous for having a bunch of bars, and during Prohibition days, this was the town everybody came to drink. So it was a famous kind of mafia-run town, and it was and we have all these just wonderful bars with music 365 days a year in multiple places in a town of 7,500, and they're all fucking closed now. And two of the main ones have now gone under, and just wow. So it's and they had kind of unknown bands, but every night, literally every night. So
it's good to hear live music. Like when you go to Key West or Nashville, there's somebody playing live music all the time.
Same thing we have in our little town of Fairfax here in California.
Let me ask you another question. What can you say about the center of the universe, a little Italian restaurant that you were writing
yeah. I'm not sure I'm done with that blog, but I got to doing all this Loudmouth stuff is just been too much. Yeah, well, we have a really great. Handsome Dick has been there. I took Handsome Dick there. He had a good time. But of course, he complained about some of the recipes and this and that because that's it, right?
He's got to complain about that's it, no matter what.
He stayed with us for like a week about a year ago with his son.
Wow.
And no, it's a wonderful little Italian restaurant run by these two sisters who are half Brazilian, half Korean, and their parents, their parents, Korean and Brazilian parents, hang out there, and the father I helped him write his memoir. He has a crazy story. He was a POW during the Korean War, and it's just, and everybody in town goes there, and it's just, and the sisters who run it are just kind of make everybody family, and it's just great. So, and now of course they're closed except for, now they're doing some outdoor stuff, but now we have fires here. I don't know if you've read about the fires. So we got these crazy wildfires. So you can't be outside a lot of the time.
A lot of smoke.
Yeah. So they set up picnic tables outside, and now it's like they can't do that. But every week I go get to-go food for me and a bunch of people that I used to eat with every Saturday night, and I way over tip, and I'm trying to keep them going. So I wrote about that because I thought this is such an interesting, paradoxical place with the Korean Brazilian sisters doing Italian food, and it's all characters, and there are lots of musicians and artists and just characters,
Where can you see this blog?
Oh, it's I have a website. It's on there. It's DuncanWrites.com, like writes, writes a letter, but DuncanWrites.com, and that's, you can find out everything about Loudmouth and where to buy it or where to pre-order it on there. And also I have my Center of the Universe blog on there, which is temporarily suspended, as the blog will tell you. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was kind of different for me, but I was trying to write something every week, and and our town is an old wacky hippie town. A lot of musicians used to live here. Van Morrison lived here when he was doing Tupelo Honey. The Phil Lesh of the Dead. Yes, got drunk in one of our big bars, and that's where he destroyed his liver in this town. And
wow.
John Doe of X was a resident here for a while. Who else lives here? Black Crowes. What's his name?
Chris.
The singer from Black Crowes.
Yeah,
Chris Robinson. And he goes to Sorella's, that Italian restaurant I wrote about. So, and it's just full of musicians. And like when Jerry Garcia died, half the town was employed as roadies or in the office for the Grateful Dead. So when Garcia died and they downsized, oh man, it was a wave of unemployment swept through Fairfax. So,
yeah, well, that's kind of like what would happen at the International, right, Rob? We're kind of like based out of the International Bar. I don't know if you remember
where
that place,
it?
Robert, on First Avenue. It's actually been in 3 locations, real close to each other. The first place used to be on St. Mark's between First and A.
Yeah.
It was called the International Bar and Grill.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Okay, and if you ever watch the Rolling Stones video "Waiting on a Friend," because that's all like shot on St. Mark's.
Oh, I just watched it recently. Somebody posted it. Yeah.
Well, take a look. Take a look. Keith Richards walking down the street. He walks right in front of the old International.
I know exactly that. I know what that part. Did it had an awning outside?
I think it had an old awning, and it was like a darkened black window,
right?
With like white letters, but it's not there anymore. It moved a little after in the 80s. It moved to like First Avenue and 7th Street, and now it's on First between.
Well, it's hanging in there.
And we're based out of there. Rob is a bartender there.
I work there 4 times a week, so I'm there just serving drinks. And with the pandemic, it's so weird doing this business because it's a whole different world.
You have to serve outside?
So thank God we got a backyard, so we could at least put like 20 people back there, but no more than that, and that pretty much kind of killed the business. Then the people that are going there, they just haven't been around people, and they go there. They just want to stay there. It's to the point that you got to tell them, you got to go.
Everybody's New York City is a weird place right now, man. Everything is like you got people that are just paranoid, and then you got people that don't give a shit either, and that's wrong too, because they're just walking around breathing on everybody, and so it's really like it's sad, and places are closing already. Because
a lot of
can't
places
make
are
closing.
What? I was just, I was thinking about that. We were in San Francisco yesterday, and I'm thinking, damn, all these little dive bars I love to go to, they're a lot of them are going to be gone, if not all of them.
But it's like you said. I mean, I think it would come back in a couple of years because someone will get that idea that's always been there. Hey, let's all hang out.
Right.
What I also think? I think this might bring back like a semi-punk revival. Maybe some people start playing more punk music.
It's funny because we were talking about that, and I don't know if you agree, Robert, but like we're almost in the, we're kind of in the early 70s right now, economically and politically, and it's almost like a reset in a way. And could that happen again? Not exactly the same way, of course. But,
not the same, but
but I mean, a lot of the original punk music came out of a lot of angst, and that's what people are feeling
and
now.
I was saying to my wife yesterday, I was saying, "Damn, I'm waiting. The one good thing that could happen out of all this is if rents come down.
Yes.
We have the same problem in San Francisco, and like both my kids moved away because they're like, fuck it, I can't pay for this shit. And so, that would be a really good effect if you could, if rents would come down 50%, but I read they're only down like 10%,
Yeah, in New York City they're down 10%.
Well,
but now you can actually negotiate with your landlord. He might even give you a little more of a break. Now.
I've heard that, and they're saying the commercial market is down as well.
Sure.
So I mean, because people are realizing, I can work from home.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
And I mean it's nice, but they're also finding they're getting huge electric bills they can't afford. So something has to give somewhere. There's got to be a middle ground, where these people come back. But you're right. I mean, part of the reason why there was ever a good music scene in New York City is because rents were affordable at that time. Because that's how you get people to come here, or people that are already from here. They're not worried about the rent; they're worried about their art, and that's how that worked in the 70s. Until you get that, you don't really have a shot. But you know what? The world, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, because rock and roll is underground now, like I mentioned before. And I think it's ripe for something. Okay, it has to come back.
I think you're right. I think there's going to be more, DIY. The spirit of DIY is going to make people have, they'll have illegal bars and illegal venues, and it'll be kind of people like when you see these bands playing out on their stoop. You see pictures of that. It's like that shit is going to proliferate and. So there may be some good stuff that comes out of it. I mean, sometimes I watch these shows, on the virtual concerts online. I mean, where it's like an artist who says, some guy I know of or like or whatever, and he's doing like a solo show, from his living room, and it's like, okay, well that can be cool.
Yeah. At least right now, where you
right, and I think that will kind of that will persist, but not instead of concerts. I mean, it's just a different thing. But
I mean, they're doing stuff here too. Like I think I heard they're doing it in California too, like these drive-up shows.
Yeah.
Okay, in these like areas, maybe a field or something, parking lot or something, and people just rolling up in the car. They're doing it with drive-through movies, drive-in movies.
Yeah, I know. We one of the movie theaters out here is now doing, instead of showing movies in its theater, they're doing drive-in movie at the parking lot of the mall. And so that works. And our friends in Blue Oyster Cult just played a drive-in concert up in New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
And I was looking at the pictures, and it was like, wow, they had giant video screens on either side of the stage. I mean, they really did it up like a regular, like a regular concert, and it looked pretty slick. It looked pretty cool, and people were in their cars and people were standing outside their cars. But whatever, I assume that's all way better for this plague thing.
It's better than being on top of each other,
You know what was funny? This year when they did the Joey Ramone birthday badge, it was all virtual.
Yeah. They do that every year for him, and
but this year was virtual. Like mostly they pick a venue and we all go to the venue. Now this year was virtual, and it was weird how many people came out.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I know.
Yeah. At least they got it in. That's been a tradition now since 2000.
Yeah, I know. And
when he
Andy
passed away,
plays every year.
Yes,
and he did this year. I saw.
It's and that was Joey Ramone's brother puts it on, and wasn't Joey Ramone's brother in the band with Lester?
Yeah, Mickey Lee. Yeah,
Mickey. Right, Birdland. Right. Forgot about that.
Yeah, okay. I think he was in Birdland. Then there was another band. But yes, Mickey Lee was definitely in the band. I mean, he was. Yeah. He put together the band, I think, for Lester. In fact, I think it was kind of his band, and then they let Lester sing. Yeah. I saw him once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
When Lester...
I think there's a live album out. I don't think they ever put out anything studio-wise. I think there's a live album.
I don't know. I don't have that. Remember. I remember when he did that single of Let It Blurt, and then he also did a record with that band down in Austin. Oh, the Delinquents. Was it the Delinquents? I forget what they were called. Down in Austin, and he did Juke Savages on the Brazos. That was the title of the album. And he went down and lived in Austin for about 3 or 6 months and kind of irritated everybody down there eventually. Because Lester was wonderful and he was a genius and all that stuff. But eventually...
It got on your
You
nerves.
know what I mean? And I love to drink and carry on, and I think I carry on with the best of them. But it would be like, shit, Lester, come on, And we were just right next door neighbors. One time we got in I do a thing on this in Loudmouth. I had to tell this story, but I one time I was out at like CBGB's and just running around the East Village, and I knew Legs McNeil a little bit, and Legs McNeil came up to me at maybe at CBGB's and said, "Hey, I took your last 6-pack of beer, ha 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 ha," and because where Lester and I lived on the top floor of a 5th floor walk up, and we were the downstairs door was locked. The only way to get in is you had to call in from across the phone booth across the street. No cell phones, kids. And so we left our doors unopened. We were kind of like, we're like, well, if you want to use my shit, you can use my shit, and I'll use your shit. And I didn't really use his shit, but apparently Legs McNeil used my shit one night. And so I came home at about 5:30 in the morning, and I'm like, I'll have a beer, as if I hadn't had enough at that point. And I go in, and there's no fucking beer in my refrigerator. And then I remember Legs McNeil told me he took the beer that Lester told him it was cool. And, man, so in New York, I don't know if they still have them in any of the old apartments, but they had police locks, and they were kind of those big things where a big metal iron pole kind of wedges into the floor.
Wedged into the floor to block.
And so that's about 4 feet long, that metal pole. And we never used it. We didn't lock our doors. But it was right next to the door. I picked it up. I threw it at the wall, at the wall that we separated me and Lester. And I threw it like a javelin. And the damn thing went halfway through the wall and just kind of boing. It was like, and I'm yelling, "You motherfucker! You took my fucking beer! You fuck! You took a man's beer. I have no beer, right?
You can't do it. That's against the rules.
Leave me one, right? I took my last beer. So, anyway, this cartoon thing, and I'm like, oh shit, it continued to be like a cartoon because it was like silence for about 3, 2, 1 seconds, and then Lester came busting out of his apartment and bashing into mine, and we got in this big fight, the one giant fight that me and Lester had. It was the one fight entirely, but
who won, Robert?
Nobody won, and we were just both we were the worst. We were the worst fighters ever. But after we're too overweight spazzes, and we're down lying on the floor, and there's furniture everywhere, and Lester, so finally it's over, and Lester says, "Hey, we're really terrible fighters, aren't we?" And I'm like, "You motherfucker!" I thought, well, that's not for you to. You can say you're a terrible fighter, but fuck you. So, anyways, funny. We did find a way to make up, but I don't know what I was telling you about, but that was
great. I mean, you got great.
That's in Loudmouth too.
And I was going to say, if as much of Loudmouth is about your life as it seems, or at least drawn from experiences, the book's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to read it. So it's coming out in October on 3 Rooms Press.
October 6th,
right?
But you
6th,
drunken stoners out there, order it now because you can pre-order it. Amazon, bookshop.org. You can go to my website, duncanwrites.com, and there's a buy page, and I'm not making money. I'm just linking to all the places you can pre-order it. So you don't forget, right? Don't you think these?
Because you might be too lumped up to do it on October 6th.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So I'm advising all audiences, don't trust your memory. Don't trust. So just go pre-order it now and let the
Be proactive.
Yeah, exactly. So comes out October 6th, but it's available to pre-order like all over the place right now. And and the audiobook comes out then.
Well, Rob,
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put when I put the podcast up, I'm gonna put a link to your website also, so people know how to get to it. And if you got any information, Amazon, I'll link it also, so people know where to buy the book.
I got a page in my website that's duncanwrites.com/buy, B-U-Y, and it just they'll find it. It has all the links to where they can pre-order it. So again.
Okay, yeah, so I'll probably link that. So, because I'm also going to put this on YouTube. So I'll probably get some picture from Creem Magazine article, and I'll do a little YouTube stuff also, and get you out there.
There's a bunch of pictures on my website. There's a good one of me trying to feed beer to Gene Simmons with Lester Bangs.
He didn't drink.
He didn't drink. With Lester Bangs laughing in the background. So there you go.
As a side note, he actually did get drunk once on his TV
No
show.
shit.
Did you see that episode?
No, but I saw the show. I kind of enjoyed the show.
One of the last episodes, he gets drunk on some champagne or something. He got sick and everything. It was hilarious.
No kidding.
Wow.
Oh, I want to see that. That's funny.
Yeah. Family Jewels. Yeah, it was
the Family Jewels. That was actually a very good show.
It was a good show. It was. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Robert. So I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
And it was an honor, and we wish you the best with this book. And if you're in New York City, definitely look us up. You got a bar to hang out in. There's a bar stool there.
I'm going to the International next time. Yeah.
Just get in touch with us. We'll take care of you. Okay.
And guys, remember, Loudmouth comes out October 10th, right?
6th, right? 6th.
October 6th.
You see,
but you can
yeah.
You can pre-order it now before it sells out. You can order it now on Amazon. Pre-order it. Get the book now, and
don't trust your memory.
You'll be ahead of the crowd. Don't trust your memory.
All right.
Now, Robert, we always have a little tagline at the end of our shows. So just hang out a second. We're going to say our little goodbyes here, and we're wishing you the best. Okay.
Thank you, guys. It's been fun.
All right, everybody. So remember how it goes.
Don't get drunk.
Get lumped up.
See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.